My name is Amy Williams, and I'm turning 30 this year. I work in an office for a local company. I still live with my dad because I haven't moved out yet. My mom passed away when I was young, and my dad and grandparents raised me. My grandparents used to run a small grocery store in our building. After my mom passed away, my dad, who was a chef, turned the store into a bakery. Even as a child, I understood why my dad opened his own business. He wanted to be there for me when I went to school and when I came home. The bread he made was simple, but really good, and his bakery became popular in the community. The regular customers always asked me how school was going whenever they saw me in the shop. I missed my mom a lot, and sometimes I would cry myself to sleep, but my dad, grandparents, and many others showed me love, so I never felt alone or unlucky. When it was time for me to get married, my fiancé was Ken Wolf. We worked at the same office, and he was part of the company's sports team. Ken was always hungry, so I often brought him my dad's bread. He loved it so much that he wanted to meet the baker, so he visited our house, and he and my dad quickly became friends. My dad often said, if I were a baker, I'd have a big dog. He really liked Ken, and they spent time together on weekends fishing or going to my dad's favorite bar. Sometimes, I joked, hey, I want to spend time alone with Ken too, but it was all fun, and we were like one big happy family. I was really happy when Ken proposed, but there was one issue. The wedding was still 6 months away, and I was planning to move into Ken's apartment after we married. He was often busy on weekends with practice and tournaments, so I spent that time cleaning his apartment and getting it ready for us. I also cooked meals for him while I waited for our new life to start. However, there was one problem. Ken's mom, Mrs. Wolf, started visiting his apartment. The first time she came, she immediately criticized the smell of bread in the house. It smells like bread in here. Do you even shower every day? She said as she barged in without knocking, using a spare key. I'm sorry, our bathroom smells like freshly baked bread. I replied, your bread smells awful. You should tell your dad to use better ingredients, like French butter or organic fruit. She sneered, well, he gets the butter from a local supplier, and the fruit is from a nearby store. I said, that's not good enough. Don't come crying to me when his business fails. She added, yes, ma'am, I said, just trying to stay polite. At first, I argued with her, but eventually, I stopped because it wasn't worth it. Even when I agreed with her, she would just get more sarcastic. Ken's mom often made rude comments about me. One time, she said, I don't know why Ken chose such a plain girl. I raised him to be good-looking, smart, and athletic. Her attitude was always negative. She looked strange, like she had a loaf of bread in her stomach, and her arms were like burnt bread. Every time she saw me, she sneered. It felt disrespectful, not just to me, but also to the bread my dad made. Once, she tried a bite of my dad's bread, but she didn't even finish it and instead showed off a fancy Danish she bought from a hotel. Ken's dad wasn't much better. He worked for a company with sales offices in the county. He was transferred to my town a few years ago, and I thought it was impressive that he was becoming influential, but like his wife, he looked down on us because we ran a small business. I could handle their rude behavior, but it slowly started to stress me out. Ken eventually got tired of his parents and moved out. Even though their house was close to his work, he did his best to protect me from them, but when he wasn't around, I couldn't do much. Honestly, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't even want to deal with such rude people. One day, Ken's dad called us over. He handed us a list of guests for the wedding. Here's the guest list, he said proudly. There are about 50 names on it. I don't know any of these people except for my family, Ken said. Ken's dad grinned. Isn't it great? My business partners want to come to the wedding. Ken raised his eyebrows, and his dad continued. We need to invite these people. We should keep 70 seats for our side and 10 for your colleagues. The rest can be for your family. Ken looked at him in disbelief. Why do we need to invite so many of your people? The venue can only hold 120, so we can't fit that many. His dad argued. It's only fair for us to invite more. The wedding of the eldest son is a chance to show off the family's power. Ken stared at him angrily. His mom chimed in. It's the custom in high society. If you were the eldest son in our family, you'd have to please a lot of people, unlike Amy, who's from a lower class. I stared at them coldly. Ken was furious, but I didn't want to stoop to their level. I looked at the guest list and then nudged Ken. It's okay, Ken, I agree with Mr. and Mrs. Wolf. Let's keep 70 seats for your side, 10 for our work friends, and 40 for my family. Is that good? Ken was shocked, but didn't say anything. I replied, "Yes, sir," pretending to be polite. Ken looked like he wanted to say something, but I dragged him out of the house. "I'm sorry, Amy. I promised we'd have a small wedding with just close friends and family," he said as we left. I reassured him, "It's fine, your parents would be there no matter what," and looking at the guest list, "It's not that bad." When I looked at the list, I saw some familiar names. I'm going to show them the true power of a baker's daughter, I thought. After all the disrespect they've shown me, I'm not going to let them walk all over me. I didn't want my dad to worry, so I kept quiet about their insults, but I realized I had to stand up for myself. If I didn't, they'd never respect me. Ken seemed surprised by how determined I was. Then he laughed and said, "That's my woman." Then I said, "Hey, can I suggest something?" Ken asked, "What is it?" I smiled and said, "We can get registered after the reception." Ken looked puzzled. "What?" I could see that he wasn't expecting that idea. Ken's expression was serious when he agreed to my suggestion. "Okay," he said. I wasn't sure what he was planning, but I trusted him. Finally, it was the big day, the wedding day of the Williams and Wolf families. The ceremony went smoothly, with everyone cheering as I walked down the aisle. When the reception started, I entered the hall with Ken, and the room erupted with cheers. The guests were excited, not just from my side but also from Ken's side. I could see the shocked faces of Ken's parents, especially his mother, who looked at me with disdain. I couldn't help but smile. The people Ken's father was proud to know, landowners and powerful figures, were actually all regular customers of my dad's bakery. They had known me since I was a child. "Amy, you've grown into such a beautiful woman," Mrs. Smith said. "Thank you," I replied. "I can't believe the girl who used to beat my son is now married." Mr. Brown laughed. "Oh, Mr. Brown," I chuckled back. It was funny, but at the same time, I couldn't help feeling embarrassed. These people were like family to me, so their stories about my childhood made me blush. I had almost declined Mr. Wolf's wedding invitation, but when I saw my name on the guest list, I couldn't resist. It felt good to see these familiar faces again. They were all friends and customers of my dad's bakery. As Ken's parents made their rounds greeting guests, I could tell they were hearing stories about me from my childhood. They must have felt uncomfortable, seeing how close my dad was to so many people in the community, while they tried to flaunt their power. The reception continued with speeches and toasts, and everything was going well, but then, something happened that changed the mood. It was Ken's father's turn to speak, but his mother grabbed the microphone from him and started talking loudly. She bragged about Ken's achievements, but then she suddenly attacked me. "Amy is careless, doesn't listen to anyone, and is showing off her flabby arms on her wedding day," she said, trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. Mr. Wolf looked horrified. "But she's the woman Ken chose," she added, smirking. "I will teach her how to be a good wife. Right, Amy?" I wasn't going to let her insult me like that, especially not in front of 120 guests. I knew she wasn't my real mother, and I wasn't going to accept her as one. I didn't want to argue, but I also couldn't let her get away with this. I turned to Ken and jokingly said, "Well, despite Ken being a wonderful man, he likes rough and fat women. Guess I'm lucky, huh?" Ken, clearly upset, forced a smile and said, "Amy is the most beautiful woman in the world. It's too bad my mom can't see that." Mrs. Wolf didn't stop there, but then my dad spoke up, his voice strong and filled with anger. "Is that all you have to say?" he said, glaring at Mrs. Wolf. "Amy may have lost her mother when she was young, but she grew up to be kind and caring. I won't forgive you for insulting her." Mrs. Wolf froze, stunned by my dad's words. "What can a baker like you do?" she sneered. "My bread fills more than just stomachs, it fills hearts," my dad replied. "Unlike you, who only looks down on others." Ken's mother was speechless, and Ken, furious, grabbed the microphone from her hand, took a deep breath, and turned to the guests with a perfect smile. Ken stood up and addressed the guests, his voice strong and sincere. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate our new life together. We're sorry you had to witness what happened today, but I'm truly happy to have Amy as my wife. She's kind, full of life, and loved by so many. I know some of you might be worried about her in-laws," he continued, with a slight laugh. The groom's side of the room cheered, and Mr. and Mrs. Wolf looked shocked. "Don't worry," Ken said confidently. "From now on, I'm cutting ties with them, and I'm going to take the last name Williams." "What?" Mr. Wolf gasped. Everyone in the room was stunned, including me. I hadn't expected this, and now I understood why Ken wanted to register after the wedding. Ken turned to his father-in-law. Mr. Williams, I'm not perfect, but will you accept me as your son? The room was silent, and all eyes were on my dad. He smiled warmly and replied, I've thought of you as family for a long time. Ken, welcome, please take care of my tomboy daughter. They shared a heartfelt hug. Congratulations, someone shouted from the groom's side, and everyone cheered. Tears welled up in my eyes. This moment felt like the happiest day of my life. I even wondered if my mom was watching over me. The next day, Ken followed through with his decision and changed his surname to Williams. I was a little worried he might regret it, but when I saw the relief on his face as he looked at his new driver's license, I knew he was happy with his choice. Ken had talked with my dad before making this decision. He shared everything about his parents and how he felt, and my dad was so moved by his sincerity that he became even more fond of him. The bond between them grew stronger, and I couldn't help but feel happy and a little jealous at the same time. Ken was the best partner I could ever ask for. As for Ken's parents, they were furious. They said they would cut all ties with him if he changed his name, but since Ken didn't hesitate, they started to panic. They also turned many of the guests against us with their insults, and their business suffered as a result. Ken's father was demoted at work after a phone call from the head office, and he was humiliated by his younger colleagues. Mrs. Wolf, devastated by the loss of her son and her husband's fall from grace, found herself isolated. Even her relatives, whom she invited to the wedding, avoided her. Her social circle disappeared, and her world fell apart. Meanwhile, Ken's younger sister had already distanced herself from their parents, choosing to stay with her boyfriend instead. 5 years later, things were much better. Did the roles turn out okay, Dad? Ken asked as he worked in the kitchen with my father. Of course, now help me with this one, my dad replied. Ken had started baking with my dad on weekends, and he loved it. He still worked in his office job but dreamed of becoming a baker someday. As for me, I quit my job when I got pregnant. I now sell my dad's bread online while taking care of our 2 kids. Ken built the website to make sure the bread didn't go to waste, and we've had great success with frozen bread sales. Our kids enjoy the delicious bread baked by both their granddad and Ken. These peaceful, happy days are everything to me. They're the most precious thing in the world.